Our entire government is in a crisis of legitimacy right now. When you look at the basic function of a government and what they're supposed to do, is they're supposed to provide essential services to the public. And also, if things get bad for you or things get bad in the country, it's their job to provide assistance to avert catastrophe. This is what government is supposed to do on a macro level and on a micro level. Yet our government, because they're so corrupt and beholden to corporations and the rich, they decided not only are we just not going to help you, we're not going to provide assistance in a time of unprecedented chaos and devastation. They decided they're going to actively make the situation worse at every turn. We have the pandemic. Deadly global pandemic spread throughout the world. It's here in the United States. Up to this point, where we are worse hit than any other country in the world, have more deaths, have more cases, at least 5 million deaths. At least 5 million cases, over 170,000 deaths. The reality is those numbers are probably real numbers are probably multiple times higher than that. And up till now, neither party, neither the Democrats or the Republicans, have a coherent strategy as to how we contain this virus. Neither one of them. So raging out of control, they still have no plan to address it. The economic crisis. Because of the pandemic, everybody was forced to go into lockdown. That created an economic crisis on a scale that nobody's ever seen in this country before. It is worse than the Great Depression. From the beginning of this, they could have chose to nationalize the payrolls for every business in this country, like many other countries around the world decided to do, and make sure that every single business had the money that they needed so that their employees can continue to get a paycheck throughout the crisis. That was an option. They chose not to do that. Instead, they decided to rely mostly on the unemployment insurance system that each state runs on their own. The federal government decided to rely on that. It's been a complete, utter disaster ever since then. Over half of the 50 million people who applied for unemployment insurance since the beginning of this crisis were denied. About 20 million or so people were granted the full unemployment benefits. But by design, these benefits were temporary and they expired weeks ago. So those millions of people have stopped getting a check from the government, and it will be months until they get another one. 28 million people are facing eviction by October. And really nobody in our government has any plans to address any of these issues. In fact, the House and the Senate went on vacation, yet another vacation, last week, and just gave up on negotiations. They're not even negotiating to get something else passed. So as everything is falling apart at the seams, people are starting to realize that the government is not there to help them. The government is not there to protect them. And like I said at the beginning, this has led to a crisis of legitimacy for our entire system of government. Now, for the last few weeks, Donald Trump has really made clear, he's not even hiding it anymore. He is on purpose trying to dismantle the post office, in part, yes, because of corruption and he wants to privatize it. But also, he's being very clear, he wants to make sure that he prevents mail-in ballots from being counted because he's afraid that those mail-in ballots are overwhelmingly going to go towards Joe Biden. So this is an outright attempt to manipulate the results of the election so that he could win. Now, for me, when I see him taking these steps to deliberately dismantle the USPS, my first concern is that he's dismantling a part of an extremely essential part of our country's infrastructure. The U.S. Postal Service delivers more mails and packages than any private delivery service in the country, combined. The U.S. Postal Service is the number one way that people can receive official documents. The Postal Service is a way that people can send and receive mail at an affordable, next to free price. And that's especially critical in the time we're living in now, where it's not very safe for a lot of people to be out in public. So a lot of people are ordering stuff online and relying on the US Postal Service to make those deliveries. So now people are just not getting their mail. That's my top concern with Trump on purpose dismantling the Postal Service. But you see, you have to actually care about the country. You have to actually care about the people in this country for that to be your top concern. Because when the Democrats hear this, the only thing they're concerned about is that this might affect them maintaining control of the House and taking the Senate and taking the White House. So this whole bizarre obsession, that the newfound obsession that the Democrats have with defending the Postal Service, has nothing to do with the service it provides regular people. They just want, their only concern is they want to make sure all the ballots are counted, because they're convinced if all the ballots are counted, they win the election, they win the House, they win the Senate, they win the White House. That's all they care about, maintaining their own power. So because of that, Nancy Pelosi has decided this issue that might cost them their seats, that might cost them their grip on power. This is the only issue that rises to the level of importance that the House should come back from vacation to address. They didn't come back from vacation to address the 30 million people at risk of eviction by October. No, they don't give a fuck about that. They were all on vacation back at home, and that didn't even cross their mind. They don't care about the fact that 50 million people who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own now have absolutely no income, because the unemployment insurance that they set up, the temporary expansion, expired, and now these people have absolutely no income to come in. These people are lining up at food banks, record long lines at food banks for miles and miles and miles. They don't care about that. That wasn't enough of a concern for them to stay in Washington and actually do their fucking job. No, the only thing that gets them off their ass is the possibility that they might lose the election because Donald Trump is manipulating the Postal Service. They do not care about the American people. None of them. They will let you starve. They will let your landlord and the police come and throw you out on the street in the middle of a deadly pandemic and leave you with no place to live and no job to get. They don't care. They will let you go bankrupt and prop up and defend the private for-profit health insurance system that we have, again, while we're in the middle of a pandemic. They do not care about people. They are actively making people's lives worse. They are compounding the problems of all these unprecedented crises because their only priority is maintaining power for themselves so that they can serve their political donors, they can serve the corporations, they can serve the millionaires and billionaires. That is literally all they care about, and they cannot make it any more clear than they have over the last few months. So I'm seeing a lot of people, like I said, this whole outrage, oh my God, Trump's gonna steal the election and he's gonna dismantle the Postal Service so they can't count in all the mail-in ballots. Is that a real concern? Yeah, but honestly, with all that's going on in the country, that's not even my top 5 concern. Not even my top 5 concern, because here's why. Several reasons. First of all, everybody obsessing over this, acting as if this issue, the issue of the post office, is what is going to delegitimize our government, delegitimize our democracy. You aren't paying attention to the big picture. Because, like I said, there's already a crisis of legitimacy for the government. And the post office is just yet another one. And like I said, this new obsession with defending the post office as if it equals defending our democracy is just, to me, it comes across as just another, another way to keep up the facade that we actually live in a democracy, that our government is actually responsive to the American people, and that they actually care about doing the policies that the American people would benefit the American people, that would benefit their constituents. That's not the case at all. So, say you defend the post office. Let's say that happens, and we get the mail-in voting situation figured out, and everybody gets their ballots, and everybody gets to mail it in, and they all get counted in an acceptable time frame. Let's say that happens. And then let's say the Democrats win. Let's say they win the House, they win the Senate, they win the White House. Our government is still not responsive to the American people. Our government is still actively working against the American people on behalf of the rich and corporations. That is fundamentally not a democracy. That is an oligarchy. That is a plutocracy. So, like I said, this obsession with the making sure all the votes are counted here in this general election is just continuing the facade that our government actually works when it clearly does not work. And whoever wins this election, whoever steals this election, or however it turns out, that's not going to make the government any more or less responsive to the American people. That's just what it is. The government is not listening to the American people. So voting for whoever you vote for does not change that. And another thing that makes it hard for me to really be outraged at this affront to our democracy is the fact that the Democrats also participate in voter suppression and election rigging and election fraud, just like the Republicans. In fact, they use the very same tactics. In New York, over 20,000 ballots were thrown out. Just now in this recent primary, they were thrown out because the Democrats, on purpose, did not want to count all those votes. I mean, we talk about how the DNC and the Democratic leadership constantly interferes with primary elections to prop up corporatist candidates all the time, to undermine the will of the voters. We talk about how in 2016, the Democratic Party was caught in broad daylight, red-handed, doing the biggest election fraud in the history of the country when they rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders so that Hillary Clinton would win. That was election fraud on a massive scale. So the fake outrage and about the Republicans rigging the general election, it just rings hollow for me, and it does not make me want to jump to the defense of the Democrats, because it's routine for them to manipulate elections and rig elections. There's some cases of them, like in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's case, where the State Board of Election literally changed vote counts, and one was ordered from a judge to maintain all the records because there was some serious inconsistencies with the vote. They destroyed the ballots anyway. So the Democrats don't care about democracy. They don't care about making sure every vote is counted. All they care about right now is, like I said, making sure that they maintain power for themselves. So now, it looks like this post office issue they're going to make this the number one issue until Election Day. They're never going to shut up about it till Election Day. They're going to fearmonger. They're going to get people all riled up and to either make people so aggravated at this that they're even more willing to come out and vote for the Democrats because they see the Republicans doing fucked up shit, or they're laying the groundwork so that they can contest the election and contest the results just like they did in 2016 with the whole Russiagate and Trump. Russia is the reason why Trump's elected and all that shit. This is all a self-serving endeavor by the Democratic Party for their own benefit. That's all this obsession with the post office is. Like I said, they're not concerned about the actual essential services that it provides to millions of people in this country, especially at a time like this when people are getting more mail than ever. They're not concerned about that. All they're concerned about is it might affect them winning the election. So I don't know how much more you need to know that they don't care about you. They do not care about regular people. All they care about is themselves.